What's up, guys? It's KB. Make sure you subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. Click the bell icon down below so you don't miss a single video from us. And thanks for tuning in to another video from Underground Sports Philadelphia. Now let's get into it.
Philadelphia, baby, you're going to love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Eagles Enemies presented by Underground Sports Philadelphia. I know it has been a couple of weeks since we've had an episode, some mix-ups with some scheduling, and we had the Phillies and the Union going on deep playoff runs, so it was tough to get some things scheduled out properly to get episodes out in the way we want them, but we are back nonetheless. It's Eagles Enemies, and it is Colts week. The Indianapolis Colts have had quite the firestorm of media around them since former Eagles offensive coordinator Frank Reich was fired from being their head coach. And Jeff Saturday is now in the fold for the Colts. They get a win over the Raiders, so they're flying high. The Eagles coming off of their first loss in this game. We'll see how they respond. I think this is a good measuring stick for the Eagles to really not fall into the traps, bounce back in a big way against a team that realistically should not be winning too many more games the rest of the way. But we've got two incredible guests on this episode of Eagles Enemies. I am joined first by Eagles fan and Colts fan and somebody who will be at this game on Sunday, Gio the podcaster, my guy Giovanni, finally coming underground with us. And it was one awesome conversation with my man Gio. He knows football like the back of his hand. He knows the Birds. He knows the Colts. I felt it was no better way than to have him on his first Underground Sports Philadelphia guest appearance than for this particular edition of Eagles Enemies. So I'm joined by Gio to kick things off. And then right after Gio, I'm joined by the man, the myth, the legend, and OG guest of Eagles Enemies, the one and only David Walker, who is now covering the Colts for Stampede Blue, part of SB Nation. We dive into all things, how this team has performed, Matt Ryan, and some fun stuff as well for both of our guests at the end of the conversations I have with them. I think this is a great opportunity for the Eagles to bounce back and really showcase the wide receivers they have on this team now that Dallas Goedert is injured and out for a significant amount of time. The Batmen are going to have to step up in a big way. This is Batman week. And I think A.J. Brown wants some redemption as well and some vengeance for getting that ball pulled out of his hand against Washington. So I'm stoked for this. But before we get started and kick it to our conversations with Gio and David, make sure you guys are following us on the socials, Twitter, Instagram, at Underground PHI, Facebook.com/UndergroundSportsPHI, and of course follow me on Twitter at KBIZZL311. Make sure you guys check out our incredible merch partners, PHI Apparel Company. Our merch is now live on their website. They make the best merch for the great fans of Philly. There's no doubt with their original and unique designs, you guys are going to stand out in the crowd at every single Eagles game. They've got Eagles merch. They've got our personal merch as well. And you guys can use code UNDERGROUND at checkout for 10% off at phiapparel.co on any apparel order. That's phiapparel.co and use code UNDERGROUND for 10% off your order. Without any further ado, let's kick it to Gio and David. All right, ladies and gentlemen, even though the Eagles are coming off of their first loss, there's no better way to bounce back from a minor setback than to have a long-awaited guest here on Eagles Enemies, presented by Underground Sports Philadelphia. I have the pleasure, the distinct honor, and excitement to finally have the homie Gio, the podcaster, Giovanni Hamilton, joining us here on Eagles Enemies. Buddy, welcome to the show. Thank you for hopping on with me this week to talk Eagles Colts. And I know you're going to the game on Sunday. What is your excitement level to be at Lucas Oil Stadium again and to be taking it in while the Birds are in town?
I am very excited to. That is an understatement. I do not have words for how excited I am to see this team live again in person. Just these new signings with Joseph and Suh is just like gonna be such a fun game to watch. See them try to take down Jonathan Taylor, and just cannot wait to see everybody, all the tailgaters and everything, just back with my kind, I guess.
Back with the people, back with the homies.
Yeah.
You bring up the two new signings, the big boys up front, Linval Joseph and Ndamukong Suh. What was your immediate reaction when you see that news come across, either your phone, you see somebody hit you up like, yo, do you see who the Birds are signing? What were your thoughts on, this potential short-term replacement for obviously the big boy Jordan Davis, who's been out for a couple weeks now, but should be back in a few weeks. But what were your thoughts on, bringing in two established veterans like Ndamukong Suh and Linval Joseph?
I love these signings, but I hate the timing. It's always when I'm in school that these times fun. And it's like I want to make a video and be
Right.
so excited and like keep that same energy, but then I'm like getting home from a long day of school and I'm like still super jacked about it, but it's like the news has already passed, so not a lot of people are like gonna be shocked about it. But yeah, just like to know that when I'm at school, like that we're not picking up our second loss this week, or this year. So it's just super exciting to say the least, and just cannot wait to see what they're gonna do on the D line, and even when Jordan Davis comes back, maybe we'll mix it up with putting them in even for some plays without Jordan Davis.
Yeah, and I kind of made a comparison to a few of my friends this week, especially when the Ndamukong Suh signing happened. It felt a lot like when the Eagles brought in your good friend Chris Long.
Yeah.
It felt a lot like that. That established veteran has won a Super Bowl, knows what it takes to, get to that mountaintop, like a lot of these guys on this Eagles defense do. But bringing in somebody like that midseason, I think that's a huge understated type of signing to bring in a Super Bowl champion like Ndamukong Suh, an established veteran like Linval Joseph. I think that just adds to the veteran leadership on this team, and that leadership, starts with our guy, Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point that it's kind of like Chris Long, and I feel like the another similarity is they both won games with Tom Brady. They know what winning is, and they can definitely bring that to the table. But one thing that's concerning me is that Jeff Saturday has also won a Super Bowl. He knows what winning is like, so it's going to be a tough week for the Birds, but it's definitely going to be one of the best matchups of this season.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. It seems like Jeff Saturday has this Colts team, reinvigorated with some new life. And you brought up Jonathan Taylor. He went to high school not too far from me, about 20 minutes down the road in Salem, New Jersey. What do you love about Jonathan Taylor? Because I've been a fan of his since he was in high school and just knew he had that it factor when he was going to take it to the next level. And I knew he was going to be one of those guys from South Jersey to be on the map, like a Mike Trout and one of these guys being a superstar from right in my backyard. What do you love about JT28?
I love the guy. I had him on the podcast, and I've hung out with him in person at training camp and whatnot. And just the guy has this pure grit for the game. And it is just so amazing to see. Young guy, young talented guy like him. And just cannot wait to see what he's going to do this Sunday. Hopefully not too much damage against the Birds. But yeah, he had his second game over 100 yards this past game. So I'm excited to see what's in for the Eagles this week.
You and I have something in common where we have obviously our love for the Eagles, but not a lot of people know I have a secret fandom for an AFC team as well from when I was younger. I'm a big Dolphins guy too. I like the Dolphins a lot. I had to do a book report on Dan Marino, and then later that year, I got gifted a Dolphins starter jacket, and I was like, it's kind of meant to be. I like this team. That was when, Zach Thomas and Jason Taylor were on the team. That's when I really fell in love with the Dolphins, and I really love those orange jerseys they had
Yeah.
too. But you love the Colts too. Obviously, when Carson went there, you followed along, and were rooting for Carson when he was with the Colts, and you stuck around with him as well. You living in Indy now. How difficult is it knowing that your two squads got to go toe to toe this week? You want to see the guys have fun. You tweeted that earlier this week. But what is that dynamic like from just your fandom perspective of I want to see the Colts do well, but not as well as the Eagles because they're my number one?
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be one of those games where it's I'm not there to root for a team. Obviously, I'm gonna be in my Eagles gear, but it's gonna be kind of a game that I'm just observing and appreciating the sport, because I feel like that's the thing that a lot of people look over is the thing that we're here for is to love and enjoy the sport of football. And some people take it a little bit too far, but just cannot wait to see matchups with Darius Slay and the secondary, and guys like Alec Pierce and Michael Pittman, and just to see these new guys coming in to try to stop the run game. And just cannot wait to see Kenny Moore. I think will probably he'll definitely be hurting our wide receivers this week, but cannot wait to see that. The Colts don't have Shaquille Leonard though, so that's definitely gonna make their game less easy for them.
Yeah, it's a big loss for them. And there's a guy's jersey right behind you who we're both big fans of, the Goblin. He's no longer here, but it kind of seems like the Eagles might have a new Goblin in this secondary with C.J. Gardner-Johnson. How much do you love him? Because I love him.
It was like we get Jalen Mills, and Jalen is like the man. I met him at training camp, and he's just literally one of the most down to earth football players that I've ever met, and one of the funniest football players I've ever met. And just to get to know him as a person when he was in Philly, just dream come true. And then to have a guy come in with the same energy as CJ Gardner Johnson, the same hair color, it's just great to see it. And I love both the guys so much. So he's definitely carrying over the green hair legacy.
How cool is it too that you always want your secondary, no matter what team you root for. It's kind of one of those inherent things that you want your secondary to have this cocky confidence and swagger about them. And it feels like for the first time in a long time, every single guy in this Eagle secondary has that cocky, confident swagger about them, whether it's big play Slay, James Bradbury, who kind of does it under the radar, but he's out there making plays. Thank you, New York Giants. CJ Gardner-Johnson, obviously, doing his thing, getting interceptions pretty much every single game. And then I think the unsung hero, Marcus Epps, has been fantastic in this secondary as well. And hopefully Avonte Maddox will be back sooner rather than later. But how cool is it, seeing obviously the Eagles succeeding, but then we have this fun back end of the defense that you're not too worried about, the big plays happening on them, because those guys want to go out there and make the big plays themselves.
Yeah, it's just great to see. And these guys, their personalities are just the real reason why we're winning. This team is such a good, just in the locker room, they're good to each other. They're joking around. It's just amazing to see. And I've gotten the opportunity to play in Darius Slay's Warzone lobbies, and just the way that the guy talks in those too, it's just like how he is on the field. And just to see that his personality really is like that, and he's just goofing around 24/7 is just amazing. And love seeing it, and love seeing him make those big plays. They call him Big Play Slay for a reason.
Yeah, he's the real big play Slay. I don't want to hear anybody. I made the funny reference. Obviously, everything going on with Twitter and people buying their blue check marks. There was a meme template going around, and I said, "Big play Slay is like you earned your blue check mark," and then Darius Slayton was like, "You bought Twitter blue."
Yeah, yeah.
You look at this Eagles defense too, and obviously, I want to pick your brain, your thoughts on how Jonathan Gannon has approached this defense so far this year, and sometimes lacking some adjustments in game. We mostly saw that on Monday night against Washington with some things that I think a lot of people would have rather seen him do to adjust during the game, but. You look at just the talent on this defense, and it really feels like for the first time even more so, and Brandon Graham said it earlier this year, this defense is more talented than 2017, and I completely agree. It feels like every single position on this defense, there's somebody who is of a Pro Bowl caliber player on this defense 24/7. If you could whisper something into Jonathan Gannon's ear during a game where you feel like an adjustment could be made, what's something you would want to see him adjust a little bit better to in an in-game scenario?
Um, I'd say he needs to pick up on the run game a little bit better. Definitely getting those linebackers in there within the run game. I actually told Howie Roseman at the NFL Combine, for the love of God, Howie, get linebackers. And after I said that on the air, I actually got to meet Howie Roseman. I have a picture with him at the NFL Combine, and I got to meet Nick Sirianni. And just he goes, whisper in my ear what I should who I should get in the draft. And I said, Howie, any linebacker will do. And he got Nakobe Dean, and just he's really put some good players in Jonathan Gannon's hands. You look back at last year and there's all these gaps. This year, all the gaps are filled. So just Howie is a football genius, a magician, and I think Jonathan Gannon can be too because he has the talent.
100%, especially after the two big signings this week as we record this. And I think one of the underrated linebackers for this Eagles team that could be an X factor against this Colts team, Kaiser White. I've become a big fan of his, and I think a lot of people underestimated how big of a signing he was this offseason. I think he's going to play a big role in this game going up against a big guy like Mo Alley Cox at that tight end position. What do you like about Kaiser White and how he's been able to step up and really, have a lot of people talking about how well he's played?
Yeah, I'm really excited to see him this Sunday too because you like you said, nobody really appreciated that signing, and he got signed. And like you said, he'll be able to handle Mo Alley Cox, and just to have the opportunity to see a guy like him covering a big guy like Mo Alley Cox. I cannot wait to see that, and it's definitely going to be a rough day for this Colts offense.
Yeah, and you look at this Colts team too, who you pay a lot of attention to. You mentioned Jeff Saturday, and the NFL world was up in arms one way or another about how Jeff Saturday was named the interim coach, replacing Frank Reich. What were your thoughts on just everything that went down with Jeff Saturday being named the coach? We mentioned it on our actual show. You want to see Jeff Saturday succeed. Was the way he got hired the best way? Probably not. But you don't want to root against the guy because of the circumstances in which he was hired. You want to see him do well and help this Colts team. But what were your thoughts on just the entire space around Jeff Saturday's hiring?
I feel like the quarterback situation in Indy right now is not fair to put that all on Frank Reich. So I feel like it was too early to fire him. I feel like we should have either stuck with Sam or brought in another quarterback to at least finish the season and then draft a new quarterback. But Jeff Saturday's proven that he can be the guy last week. So hopefully he keeps showing some improvement and he can become that guy and bring Indy a Super Bowl championship.
Got a few former Eagles on that offensive line for the Colts as well that will be blocking Matt Ryan. How excited are you to see Matt Ryan play in person? A guy who is, a Philly guy playing for this Colts team, and he's towards the end of his career, so you're going to get to see him, one last hurrah. But how excited are you to see Matt Ryan in person?
I'm excited to see him. I feel like he's going to get sacked a lot, but it's all right. Hopefully he doesn't get injured because Brandon Graham is going to come in hot after that penalty last week that I can't even get into that. I'm a little salty about that and the face mask thing. But like Brandon Graham said, we can't put the game in the ref's hands. He'll be mad after that flag though, and he'll come in more conservative, but he'll hit just as hard.
100%. And you brought up guys like Michael Pittman Jr., Alex Pierce, Paris Campbell. Those are kind of the big three wide receivers for this Colts team this year. How do you think, they're going to match up against this Eagles secondary, and how well, for the most part, this Eagles secondary has contained opposing wide receivers this year? And how do you think, the matchups will go? Who do you think Big Play Slay is going to draw? Is it going to be Michael Pittman, or do they kind of, try to go back to that zone, which I hope they don't, because I think this Eagles secondary is much better suited for how talented they are to be able to play a lot of man-to-man.
Yeah, I feel like the thing that I've been saying to a lot of people is no yards through the air this week. No yards. I feel like they're going to be crucial in the run game, but this Eagles secondary is just going to bat down everything they throw up.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to kind of just monitor that matchup. And I think on the flip side, there's got to be a little more reliance from Jalen Hurts on his wide receivers, with Dallas Goedert now injured and going to be out for some significant amount of time. Who do you think's going to step up? Is it going to be, swole Batman, skinny Batman, or fast Batman?
It'll definitely have to be swole Batman. It'll have to be swole Batman. They call him swole Batman for a reason. The guy is jacked. So,
yes.
He'll definitely be the guy.
Yeah, and you look at, some of the guys back in that Colts secondary, your guy Kenny Moore and Rodney McLeod is back there, who knows Jalen very well, obviously from being teammates and, knowing some of his tendencies from practice. What do you think Rodney's been whispering in the ears of this Colts secondary about Jalen Hurts and, the type of passer he is to try to, figure out ways to defend him?
I actually got to see Rodney and talk to Rodney a little bit a few weeks ago. He's loving it here in Indy, and it's just great to see a guy like him, a guy who does so much for the community, come here to live in Indy and play for Indy. Just love the guy. Can't wait to see him. He's got a lot of success coming his way. But yeah, I just cannot wait to see him try to contain these wide receivers, and think it'll be hard for him, but he'll definitely accept the challenge.
And I think one thing I really want to see the Eagles do this week against this Colts defense, like you mentioned, Leonard's out this week. Use Miles Sanders early. Get that run game established. Not that you need to run the ball the entire game, but we saw what happened against Washington in that second half when you started running Miles Sanders a bit. You were able to move the ball down the field. I think if the Eagles can get Miles Sanders going early, get a little Kenny Gainwell in there, maybe Boston Scott a little bit, but establish the run game a little bit to take a lot of pressure off of Jalen and not, make it all on his shoulders to move the ball down the field, I think the Eagles will find a lot of success against this Colts defense if they can run the ball.
Yeah, I think that we gotta use Miles Sanders more. But I feel like we should use Kenny Gainwell a lot. The guy last year proved that he can run the ball, and he is the guy. You know, he can run the ball for yards, man, and I just would love to see him get more snaps.
Again, I think he's a guy that you can kind of utilize in that screen game a little bit, and with Jalen's mobility, you don't necessarily have to just drop back and boom, dink, and dunk to him. You can, kind of survey the field a little bit, and then if Kenny's there, let him run wild and use his speed in the open field. But I think Miles Sanders this year, too, has had, pretty close to a career year, finally getting into the end zone. It's been nice to see Miles score some touchdowns this year. And I think, when he's going, this Eagles team is going, and that's very exciting to see. You can kind of gauge the way that the flow of the game is going to go a lot of times based on Miles' early down success and the Eagles being in much more manageable situations on second and third down rather than, second and 8, third and 6. You want to be in those better situations as you move the ball down the field. Who do you think is going to step up at the tight end position with Dallas Goedert out? And, how do you think the Colts are going to kind of game plan the way the Eagles offense is going to operate, knowing that arguably a top 5 tight end in the NFL is not going to be on the field this week? How do you think that changes their defensive matchups in covering, all the Batmen out there on the field and covering Miles Sanders in the passing game?
I feel like it won't be that hard to change our game plan for this week. I feel like you said, all the Batman out there. There's no Robins, It's all Batman, and just cannot wait to see Jalen put it in the his wide receiver's hands and just see him air it out. Let the kid air out the ball. I want to see some good plays through the air this week, and like you said, with Dallas Goedert out, definitely a top 10 quarterback at least. He's definitely going to have to run the ball more.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this Colts defense, it looks like they're getting some guys back who didn't practice on Wednesday, but they practiced on Thursday. Guys like DeForest Buckner, Stephon Gilmore, your guy Yannick Ngakoue. Like, they've got some dogs on that defense that are going to be trying to come after Jalen. They're going to be trying to make their way around this Eagles, all-star offensive line, and you got Stephon Gilmore that's probably going to be out there covering either Devontae Smith or A.J. Brown. What do you think of, some of these playmakers on this Colts defense that maybe, they're not getting enough credit for how good they are, even though they might be a little bit later in their careers? They're still ball players on this defense.
Yeah. I think that these guys like Yannick are gonna definitely eat out our offense, but I feel like, I don't know, man. It's just different this week. Like last week, you're seeing the slow start of this Washington game, but I don't know, Jalen. Like Nick Sirianni said on Pat McAfee's show, he's got that dog in him.
Absolutely. And you bring up Pat McAfee. I wanted to ask you about this too. You were on the Pat McAfee show, man. How cool was that experience for you? To be on a big stage like that with a guy like Pat McAfee and all the boys there. What was that experience like?
Yeah, it was great. I love those guys, and just to go down to the studio when I was here last October. I hadn't even moved here yet. We were here with Carson Wentz's AO1 Foundation. We fell in love with the city. That's why we kind of moved here. We came for a couple of days, and we just fell in love with the city. And then I think we left on a Tuesday. So the Monday before we left, I went on Pat McAfee's show, and we got to go to his office. You walk in, it's just like complete man cave. Then there's like basketball hoops and everything. You go into another room, which has a wrestling ring, a full-size wrestling ring. And then you go into another room, and that's the studio. and it was just super cool to go down with all the boys and see the studio and do the podcast with Pat McAfee, which he still plays on some of his shows.
Yeah, it's super cool, and seeing you on there, I was like, hey, I was like the Leonardo DiCaprio meme where he's pointing at the screen. I was like, I know that guy. That's my dog right there on the Pat McAfee show. And I think that was such a cool experience for you to be able to go down there, and now he's got to invite you to the Thunderdome that he's got, that giant new studio. What do you think about that place?
It is crazy. I watch Pat McAfee's show religiously because that's my guy, and just to see his new studio, like, it is crazy. And I thought that the last one was crazy. This new studio is just epic. I would love to visit it.
What do you make of what are your thoughts on Ty Schmidt's Nick Sirianni impression?
It's pretty funny, man. It was pretty funny.
I thought the rock paper scissors had me in stitches laughing on the floor. I couldn't get enough of it.
Yeah.
What's your favorite Ty Schmidt impression that he does?
It probably is the rock paper scissors one. That one was funny.
I'm a big fan of his Sirianni. I also really, really love his coach Lou Holtz when he's impersonating the former head coach of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. That always gets a good chuckle out of me from Ty Schmidt. And we love Pat McAfee here. But Gio, you're a Colts guy. You're obviously an Eagles guy. If you had your opportunity to kind of assemble, I know you're a wrestling guy too, right?
Yeah.
If you got to assemble kind of a wrestling card, if you will, some matchups of your favorite Eagles and your favorite Colts players, who are some of those guys you're throwing on the wrestling card to go toe-to-toe with one another?
Ooh, I'd say Swole Batman, AJ Brown, Jalen Hurts, the dog, Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith just as a tag team, crazy. And Darius Slay, obviously. And I think James Bradbury.
I like that.
Yeah. And for the Colts side, it's got to be Kenny, Shaquille, Jonathan Taylor, obviously. Can't be Matt Ryan. The guy's a little too old to wrestle. But, let's see. Kenny, Shaquille, JT, Yannick. Yannick would be a demon in the wrestling ring. And gotta say Paris Campbell.
I like that. And I think I'm going to throw one in the ring for you, no pun intended, from the Eagles side to go up against Demon Time, Yannick Ngakoue. What do you think about a matchup of Yannick versus Fat Batman, Jason Kelce?
That would be hilarious. I would love to see that. Yeah.
See Jason Kelce walk out, crop top Eagles jersey, Batman mask on from the top rope.
Like, you know who the Blue Meanie is?
Yes.
My good friend, the Blue Meanie, just if he was a football player, it would be Jason Kelce.
100% agree.
If Jason Kelce was a wrestler, it would be the Blue Meanie. Just I would love to see that. But it would be all Eagles gear, the Eagles crop top. It would be so funny.
That'd be hilarious. And then I know you like to do it when you like to get guys on your podcast. So the floor is yours. If you want to call out anybody who's a dream guest for you, who do you want to come on the Giovanni Show podcast?
It's gotta be Jason Kelce, or like I gotta say Nick Sirianni would be crazy.
I like that one too.
Yeah.
We got to have a Giovanni Show New Heights collab pod.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Travis Kelce is one of my good friends and just loves that guy to death. And I love his show so much. So, yeah.
There it is. Jason, Travis, you need to collab with Gio and then Nick Sirianni.
Yeah.
You gotta come grow with Gio like the flowers you talk about, my man. Gio, this has been a blast. Plug your podcast, plug where everybody can follow you, to let them know. Obviously, you've got way more followers than I do, but you got to let them know where to come to get that good, juicy, spicy Eagles and Colts content. But let everybody know where to follow you and where to check out the podcast.
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Gio the Podcaster. You can find my podcast wherever you get your podcast. It's on Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, anything, anywhere you get your podcast. It is the Giovanni Show, and thank you so much for having me on today.
You know it, man. Anytime. You're welcome anytime back underground with us, and keep crushing it, man, because you're doing amazing things on the mic, and your football analysis is top notch, man.
Thanks, man. Go Birds!
All right, everybody, it's the first Eagles Enemies that we have multiple guests. Following up our good friend Gio the Podcaster is the one and only recurring guest on Eagles Enemies, presented by Underground Sports Philadelphia, now covering Matt Ryan in the Indianapolis Colts. My good pal, Welp DW, David Walker. What's going on, my friend?
Oh, a whole lot of whelps these days covering the Colts.
Let's dive right into that. What's it been like, new start for you, new start for Matt Ryan, obviously in Indianapolis. What's it been like covering a new team for you?
Oh, man. I thought, going in, this is a team with a really good defense. This is a team that I thought was going to have a great offensive line and, a great running back. And it felt like everything was lined up the way it should be. And it has been anything but those things.
It has been quite the scene, especially before we started recording. The last week and a half has been absolutely turbulent with the Indianapolis Colts. I want your take on everything that happened with Jeff Saturday, the process, your thoughts on, just him getting this job, getting that win against the Raiders after all of the turmoil and everybody, coming at Jim Irsay for the process and not necessarily at Jeff Saturday, but your thoughts on everything that went down with this coaching hire.
Yeah, look, Frank Reich being fired wasn't a big surprise. I think, after they just got completely manhandled in Foxborough, it seemed like that was on the horizon. If not this week, it was going to happen absolutely at the end of the season. He was a dead man walking. So that news was a little surprising, not entirely so, but man, when the Jeff Saturday news dropped, I think everyone's jaws dropped with it. It was, what is going on? Has he ever coached before? And, we sort of tracked that back. It's like, oh, he coached a high school team, in fact, in Georgia, where I'm at. And it was just sort of surreal, not even sure what to make of it. And, look, I've actually watched the Colts for many years. They were my AFC team, if you will. And, going back to the Peyton Manning era, Saturday is a phenomenal player. Went to, multiple Pro Bowls, obviously knows what he's doing as a football player, but it's a different thing to be a coach. So the media frenzy around it has been insane. Everyone has an opinion about it. And like you said, I think most of it has been directed towards Irsay. Like, what is he doing? He's disrespecting these coaches. He's got literally two former head coaches on the staff for the Colts, and John Fox and Gus Bradley, and just sort of went right past them and went to this guy. Look, it's one game down. He's 1-0. I don't know that is necessarily a sign of what he did as much as it was where the Raiders are as an organization right now.
Yeah.
But he's at minimum, he has got the players buying in. He is a guy that has clout in the locker room. He's been there. He knows what it is to win. And I think from that aspect, he at least has their ear, maybe in the way that, sometimes Frank, coaches as they get on in their time with a team can begin to lose the locker room a little bit, not because they're bad coaches, but just because, the same message doesn't resonate anymore. And maybe Saturday's getting through. We'll find out. I think that this has to be proven over a series of games and not just the first game.
Yeah, and I even said, you have a former Colts legend on this coaching staff too. So if you wanted to go the way of like, hey, let's still get fans to buy tickets and come into the stadium, let's make Reggie Wayne the head coach. And then the Reggie Wayne comments come out the other day as well. Like if he would have known this was going to happen, he wouldn't have even taken the job.
It was playful. He was playing around with the media. Just to be clear, the context is important there.
But I was like, yeah, if you want to do that, like, why don't you just hire the Colts legend that's already in the locker room? It's been pretty wild. But what do you make of Matt Ryan? You've obviously covered Matt Ryan for a number of years, dating back to when you were covering him with the Falcons. Now he's with the Colts. What have you made of year one for him in Indianapolis?
It's been awful. I mean, there's no other way to put it. And look, a lot of people are going to rightfully point to the struggles of the offensive line. That has absolutely been a big part of it. And I think it's fair to say that with a quarterback like Matt Ryan, he's very much an old school pocket quarterback. And if you don't give him a pocket to operate out of, that's, he's not built to operate consistently outside the pocket. That said, he has had a lot of unforced errors that weren't a factor of the offensive line this year. Stuff that a 14, 15-year vet shouldn't be doing on the field. Is it because he's rattled? Maybe. But at the same time, you expect a vet to not get rattled. And look, I have been the biggest Matt Ryan defender throughout my time covering the Falcons and now with the Colts, but he was not good. When he was benched, even though it was partly due to his injury, the reality was you can put some of the blame on the offensive line, but he was not playing good football. So he had a good game against the Raiders, which again, I sort of point to them as a franchise that's in shambles right now. They're heading right towards a top 3 pick, worst pass rush in the league, and that certainly contributed. And that's not going to be the case this Sunday.
Yeah, I need the Raiders to start winning games so the Eagles continue to trend towards the top 3 pick. Thank you, New Orleans.
No kidding.
Obviously, Matt Ryan should be playing again this week at quarterback for the Colts, and the Eagles did some things to go bolster that defensive line that has a number of superstars on it to begin with. Linval Joseph, Ndamukong Suh, and, the usual suspects of Javon Hargrave, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, Josh Sweat. The list goes on and on. Robert Quinn maybe will get in the mix this week. It's one hell of a matchup for a Colts offensive line that has struggled for the first time in quite some time. Like, usually this Colts offensive line over the years has been talked about probably since Quentin Nelson was drafted as a top 7 offensive line in all of football.
Right.
And it hasn't been the case this year. 2 former Eagles on that offensive line with Matt Pryor and Dennis Kelly now. What do you think it's been in terms of, just the offensive line struggles, and how do you kind of view this O-line matching up against the big dogs that the Eagles are going to be throwing at Matt Ryan, at Jonathan Taylor, and the rest of this Colts team?
Yeah, that's really the biggest issue has been the interior. They started off right guard with Danny Pinter, sort of unproven over long term at that position, and he was terrible. And they had Matt Pryor out at left tackle. And look, he finished last year fairly strong for the Colts. I don't know that warranted sort of penciling him in as a starter at left tackle in a position that is that important. And he has been he's been benched at this point. They've tried him on. The only position they didn't try him at was basically center, but they tried him at every position. And I made the comment the other day that a gentle gust of wind would have been a better positional fit than Matt Pryor was on the offensive line. So it's been a lot of guys. Even it's gotten to the point where even guys like Nelson have not played to their normal standard. He's been one of the top guards in the league, and he sort of had these games where he doesn't look like himself. So it's been not just one guy, but it's been those two key positions, left tackle, right guard, and it's really just destabilized the whole unit.
I felt all of those comments about Matt Pryor in my soul. Because the amount of people who tried to convince Eagles fans that Matt Pryor could be a quality offensive lineman in this league made me want to rip my hair
Nope.
out week in and week out
Yeah.
every year that he was here. Jonathan Taylor is one of my favorite players in the league. Went to high school 20 minutes down the road from me. I've known about JT since he was in high school, and seeing him succeed, it's fun having our Southern New Jersey guys do their thing on the big stage, like JT, like Hassan Reddick, like Mike Trout in Major League Baseball. It's a lot of fun to kind of champion those guys. It seems like JT's kind of like on the upswing again in terms of where he wants to be, where everyone expects him to be. Obviously, that ankle injury has derailed him a little bit this season and hasn't really been what he was last year because of it. But what have you enjoyed about watching Jonathan Taylor when he's been on, and what do you kind of expect for him against this Eagles defense?
Yeah, look, the Eagles defense is going to be a tough matchup for sure. But JT is he's phenomenal. Even with this offensive line sort of struggling both in pass blocking and run blocking, not getting ahead, he is a fighter. That initial contact, he fights through it. You see plays that for most running backs would be -3, -4 yards, and he's turning it into +2, +3 on a regular basis. And he had the 66-yard touchdown run against the Raiders where several guys looked like they were going to catch up with him, and he has this ability to turn on an extra gear, which you wouldn't expect from a guy like that. He's, in my opinion, I still think he's one of the best backs in the league. The numbers aren't there this year like they were in the past, and I think, as you said, that's in big part due to the ankle injury that he's sort of been fighting through. It looks like he's finally getting back to close to full health, and if Jeff Saturday is actually making an impact on the offensive line, and again, wait and see for the long-term results on that. I think JT is going to be the biggest benefactor, maybe even more so than Matt Ryan. I think this offense still is at its best when JT is picking up 100 yards per game. So hopefully this offensive line does their job. I think if they're going to win against the Eagles, they have to get the ground game going. They're not going to win in the air. I don't think that's the kind of offense the Colts are built to be this year. And it's going to be JT. Wait to see what he can do, but I don't want to be the guy that bets against him.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, you look at a lot of teams now starting to try to, run the ball against the Eagles, especially since Jordan Davis has been out. Obviously the Eagles go out and sign 2 big run stuffers this week to hopefully alleviate the gashing that opposing running backs have given to them. But you look at the Eagles secondary too, and you say you don't want to, you're not going to win through the air. The Eagles secondary, this is like arguably the best secondary I've watched in my entire life for the Eagles. And, that's across the board. And I got to grow up watching Brian Dawkins play for the Philadelphia Eagles. But you have, Darius Slay, James Bradbury, Marcus Epps has stepped up in a big way and is an unsung hero at the free safety position. And then a guy really well when he was in New Orleans, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, just absolutely unbelievable. Again, thank you, New Orleans, for basically giving him away for free and giving us your first-round pick. He's been unreal. What do you make of this Eagles secondary when Matt Ryan is going to look to pass? How do you think he's going to try to navigate going up against those 4 guys who are in that back end of the defense?
Yeah, it's going to be tough. Look, right now, Michael Pittman, I think, is a true wide receiver 1. And Alec Pierce, I think, has all the makings of being a great pairing with him. But he's still a rookie. Rookie wide receivers have, they can have these spurts of great games, and we've seen that. Alec Pierce has had some great moments. And then they have, moments where they disappear. And that's sort of the ups and downs of, a rookie wide receiver like that. Honestly, I think if the Colts are going to have success in the air, it's going to be with their tight ends. And unfortunately, one of the rookie tight ends who showed a lot of promise is going to be out for this game, Jelani Woods. Kylan Granson, I think, is someone that he would look to target a little bit more, Mo Alley Cox. But really, if I'm going into this game, you're going to have to plan some trickery, try to throw some picks at the line, get some guys open, some quick outs. Because if there's one thing about this Eagles front, and we've talked about this in years past, the Eagles have done it the right way. They continue to build in the trenches, and when you can dominate in the trenches, it just makes it impossible to build, extensive game plans offensively when you can't keep your quarterback upright. And that's, so I don't know what they're going to do. Hope and a prayer. That's probably what they're looking at right now.
And then, on the flip side, too, when you look at this Colts defense, it seems like some guys are getting healthier and should be, on the mend for them. Some of these, big, flashy name defenders who might not be where they were in years past with former teams, but can still, make plays on the defensive side of the ball. But you look at what this Eagles offense has been able to do for most of the season, especially in the second quarter, except for that Washington Commanders game that I try to just remove from my brain. But trying to derail Jalen Hurts, what do you think this Colts defense is going to try to do? Because I think it's out there now for a lot of teams. The whole narrative around try to make Jalen Hurts beat you with his arm is kind of going by the wayside because he's proving a ton of people wrong that he can beat you with his arm. He can throw the deep ball. He's accurate. He's only got 3 interceptions on the season, and he's got big playmaking wide receivers, and that kind of helps you get the ball down the field.
Yeah, look, legitimate MVP candidate, right? He's got to be in the conversation this year. And, a quarterback that many people kept trying to write off year after year and has done the one thing you rarely see with quarterbacks in the NFL. He's improved every single year he's been in the league. Exactly what you want to see. Look, the Colts defense it's a fairly decent unit. And they have done a good job of defending the pass. Stephon Gilmore, wrong side of 30, but he's one of those corners that extends his career by being very cerebral, being a very smart corner. And we've seen that play out this year. He's been one of our best defenders. DeForest Buckner is still wrecking on the interior of the defensive line. Grover Stewart has, I think, quietly put together a Pro Bowl quality season on the interior as well. He is a guy that not only is, helping to get tackles in the backfield, he's adding sacks onto it, from the nose, which is not something you'd expect. And look, Shaquille Leonard, formerly Darius Leonard, one of the best linebackers in the league, has barely been on the field. But all of a sudden, Bobby Okereke has turned into a top-notch linebacker. So this Colts defense has a lot of good going on. They do have gaps. Kenny Moore is struggling in this style of defense, hasn't been the same corner he has been. And I'm looking at Devonta Smith and, Brown, and I'm thinking, oh, man, I feel good about Gilmore, but our safety help over the top is maybe not what we need it to be to consistently shut these guys down. And the pass rush for the Colts is sort of, it's better than it was last year, but it's still roughly middle of the league, 12, 14 range. So, yeah, look, if you're asking me, right now the Eagles are the class of the NFC by a long shot. And we've seen some of the big names fall by the wayside. Look at Green Bay, just recently dropping that game. Tom Brady and the Bucs aren't the same team. The Rams aren't the same team. In my mind, the Eagles are steamrolling through the NFC right now.
Unless you're doing power rankings, then the Vikings are far and away ahead of them.
Yeah, please. I'll take Jalen Hurts over Kirk Cousins.
Who beat the Vikings this year, David? Who beat them this year by 3 scores?
It's power rankings are garbage.
Yes,
that is proof that they're garbage. So no, I love what the Colts defense can do. They're not getting enough help from the Colts offense, and I don't think they're going to drastically slow down the Eagles offense, because I think right now the Eagles are just on a different level than where the Colts are at.
And not that it truly kind of converts when it comes to game day, but I do think it is a benefit for this Colts defense having Rodney McLeod back there and him knowing Jalen Hurts, from being teammates since Jalen came into the league and kind of knowing how he plays. The style of quarterback that he does, I think that's a benefit just on the intelligence side of this football matchup.
Yeah, McLeod has been a big factor in stabilizing this defense. They started off kind of rough, They had put a rookie third-round pick, Nick Cross, who I think long-term has a ton of potential at the safety position. But McLeod came in and just sort of helped stabilize the back end of the Colts defense. He's not a big flashy player now, but like you said, he's just that guy that has come in. His veteran presence has been big. I think he will be, he's played very well this year for the Colts. I don't want to undersell him and pretend like it's just that he's helping the defense. He has done his role exceptionally well, back there. So I think he'll be a factor. But again, I look at the weapons. I look at the offensive line for the Eagles, and I just don't see a lot of options where the Colts can dominate enough to shut down one aspect of what the Eagles want to do on offense.
What do you think the odds are that Nick Sirianni called Frank Reich this week to kind of get some intel from, his former commander-in-chief when Sirianni was with the Colts on the team that fired him?
If I were a betting man, I would put so much money on it, and I would bet money that Frank picked up that phone.
Oh, 100%. He saw that 215 cell phone area code and said, Nick?
How much time do you have? Yeah.
Do you want the playbook?
Right. And I love Frank Reich. He is, like I said, sometimes coaches their message begins to stagnate in the locker room for whatever reason, and it doesn't say much about the coach himself. I wish Frank Reich would have been given the chance to finish out the season. He is a good man. And I think, you talk to guys like Sirianni and they have nothing but good things to say about Frank Reich. So there is a part of me that hopes that he did pick up that phone and gave him a few pointers.
We love Frank Reich here. He doesn't have to buy a meal here ever again.
Exactly, right?
Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't shock me this offseason too if, Shane Steichen gets hired to be a head coach somewhere and Sirianni's just like, hey, Frank, you want to do a little role reversal and come be my OC?
Yeah, come on back.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be an interesting aspect of this whole thing too, is Sirianni going back to Indy for the first time and facing this Colts team and having that kind of emotional aspect to this game as well. And then on the flip side, Eagles say hello to Nick Foles again.
Who at this point isn't even like he's the third quarterback, man. He even when Ryan got benched, they sort of went right past Foles, and maybe he's going to leave with on the Philadelphia bus when the game is over. It's like, sorry guys, I'm going to go where they want me. So
yeah, that did kind of surprise me a little bit because I didn't think Ellinger was ready to kind of just take the reins like on a whim like that. So I figured like if Matt Ryan was going to be injured, going to get benched, you have a guy who's a proven veteran, has proven he can play in this league, in Nick Foles, and for them to kind of just bounce right over him really like surprised me.
Yeah, you remember what you were saying at the very beginning about sort of the chaos of the Colts? That's a part of that story.
I think a lot of people forget Nick Foles is on the Colts roster at this point.
Yeah, I think the Colts have forgotten that Nick Foles is on the Colts roster.
He's probably running Carson's Thy Kingdom Crumb food truck at this point.
Yeah, Nick's a smart guy. He's getting that paycheck. He's not getting hit. He's not getting beat up on the sidelines.
It's the best job in sports.
He's the one who's mastered the art, and we just don't realize it yet.
He's on that Chase Daniel plan.
That's exactly right.
The Sam Bradford school of negotiating a contract and not playing too well.
Oh man, I wish I had someone in my life that could take advantage of a corporation as well as Sam Bradford did in his career.
Unbelievable. When you look at Sam Ellinger too, like obviously he's now been benched, but do you think he is in the mix for the future of this Colts team? Is it one of those things that like maybe he was just thrown into the fire too quickly and he just wasn't like mentally prepared for all of that around a team that isn't necessarily performing at the levels that was expected going into the season? Or do you think the Colts are going to kind of, turncoat and try to find another quarterback, which will be like, what, quarterback number 9 since Andrew Luck retired?
9, 19. I've lost count.
Said
Yeah.
hike.
Yeah, right. Look, the funny thing is, Ellinger in his first start actually looked fairly competent. He was accurate. He did a fairly good job in that game. I was actually surprised with how well he did play in that first game. Then he goes to Foxborough and got sacked 9 times, which was like a Jekyll and Hyde type of performance. I don't know. The problem I think with Ellinger is, and this is the case with quarterbacks, throughout NFL history, is if you're not taken in the first or second round, even if you play well, there's always like this little target on the back of your back of your neck, where coaches and GMs just think, oh, well, we got this guy in the 5th round, we got this guy in the 6th round. We need to start thinking about the future. And I think Sam is always going to face that. I think he's done everything he can to try to make a case for himself. I think he, made a strong case to at least be in the mix in that first game. Honestly, I think with where the Colts are right now as an organization, if they don't go and target a quarterback in the first round of the NFL draft, they may not make it out of the draft alive. Like, the fans are ready for them to invest seriously in who is going to be that next quarterback, right or wrong. I think that's where the organization is right now.
And I mean, you look at you look at this game in terms of matchups. When the Eagles are firing on all cylinders on offense, there's a number of options, and I think some of these guys are going to have to step up even more now that Dallas Goedert is injured. Thank you, refs.
Right.
AJ Brown, who do you think draws the swole Batman matchup, and who do you think draws the skinny Batman matchup against Devontae Smith?
Oh man, I mean, if you're forced to draw it up, it would have to be Gilmore on Brown, because our second best corner, Isaiah Rodgers, I think is 5'9", and there's no way I put Isaiah Rodgers on AJ Brown. It's just jump balls all day. So that on paper makes the most sense. Devontae Smith on Isaiah Rodgers. And incidentally, Isaiah Rodgers has been phenomenal this year. Maybe even better all around than what Gilmore has been. So the Colts do have 2 very, very good corners. I think that's the most likely matchup. Although, man, I'm putting safety help out there. I'm calling in the water boy to put him in the backfield. 13, 14 men on the field. I'm paying off the refs to try to help out with this. Yeah,
Jim Irsay's guitar collection.
That's right. I'm putting anybody and everybody back there to help defend against this offense right now, because it's scary. I love the Colts defense, but this feels like a different level from where they're at right now.
And then you look, a lot of people forget, because there are so many weapons. Miles Sanders is having like a career resurgence this year, and has figured out how to find the end zone again, which is very nice. How do you see the Colts trying to kind of derail the Eagles' run game, similar to what the Commanders did? Didn't really let the Eagles run the ball until that second half, and by then it was almost kind of too little too late, with just, silly mistakes the Eagles had made and turnovers and stuff like that. But how do you see the Colts run defense trying to stop not only Miles Sanders, but, the mix-in of Kenneth Gainwell and Boston Scott?
Yeah, it's the one area for the Colts defense that they've actually struggled a little bit, is consistently stopping the run. I will say that the thing that hurts the most is that Kwity Paye, our first-round pick from last year, is already been ruled out for this game. And that's going to hurt. He's actually been one of our best defenders, not just as a pass rusher, but against the run, setting the edge on the outside. I'm still a big believer on the 2 guys in the interior, Stewart and Buckner. I think they can do a good job there. And I do think, the plan will be to try to limit the run, set up as much as possible, try to set up 3rd and long repeatedly, to at least try to give your pass rush a chance to get home on the big down. But yeah, it's I'm not I want to find reasons to be optimistic. And I love these Colts players. I think Bobby Okereke is going to be a big factor there. He's a very at this point, I think he is just a national game away from getting the kind of recognition he deserves for the season he's had. So to me, it's going to come down to those guys: Okereke at linebacker, Stewart and Buckner on the interior, and hopefully someone steps up on the edge, because that's really where my biggest concerns lie, is at the defensive end position.
It's going to be quite the interesting game. And the last time you were on the show, we talked about Matt Ryan being a Tesla. Fitting that, the Tesla guy's now running how we first met. The guy on your hat, though, if you had to cast one former Falcon and one current or former Colt in Deadpool 3, who's going in the movie with Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds?
Oh, man. Look, former Colt, it's got to be Marvin Harrison. I loved watching him play, and the guy could, he was slippery, and I feel like that's the kind of guy you want in the Deadpool movie. Former Falcon, I would go with someone that's nasty, Jonathan Abraham.
Oh, that's a good one.
Old pass rusher. You get him out there, he's an intimidating dude. I put him out there as one of your main villains. Those are my two guys.
I was gonna say, Deadpool likes to gamble a little bit. Maybe Calvin Ridley.
Oh, no. Well, he's a Jaguar now. So.
Yeah, he's a former Falcon.
Yeah. Very well played.
Oh man, this game's gonna be interesting. I'm intrigued to kind of see how the Eagles bounce back from their first loss, and kind of just seeing how Jeff Saturday coaches against one of the best teams in football. I think that's gonna be a very interesting chess match between Nick Sirianni, who a lot of people doubted last year of being a good head coach, versus a guy who a lot of people don't think should be a head coach right now.
Right.
It's going to be a wild time, but I'm looking forward to it. David Walker, let everybody know where they can check you out on the socials, check out the new Colts podcast that you're a part of, and keeping up to date with everything you're doing covering the Colts.
Yeah, Stampede Blue Podcasts, myself, several other hosts. We've got stuff going almost every single day of the week, and StampedeBlue.com, part of the SB Nation network. And for as long as it's up on Twitter, you can find me at NFLDW. That may be, for 5 more minutes or 5 more hours. Who knows these days?
Hopefully it's for 5 more millennia, because I can't think of a world without being able to shitpost on Twitter.
I know. It's like one of my favorite pastimes.
It's the best. And I say it's the best platform because it's still just text.
Yeah.
It's not pictures. It's not, curating video content. It's just whatever the hell comes to mind. You put it out there. It's the best one. Hopefully it doesn't go away.
Yep, I'm with you, man.
And if it does, we'll just shitpost on LinkedIn or something.
That platform's going down so quickly.
It's unreal. You're the best, man. It's always a pleasure having you on the show, and looking forward to some back and forth discussion during the game on Sunday.
Absolutely. It's good to be here, man.
Big shout out to Gio and David for hopping on the show this week. Just an absolute blast chopping it up with both of them about this matchup, about some fun stuff that they're into, and tying in the Eagles and Colts into both. But make sure, like I said at the top of the show, you guys follow us on the socials at UndergroundPHI on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.com/UndergroundSportsPHI. Subscribe to the podcast feed, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Just search Underground Sports Philadelphia. That's where you get every episode of Eagles Enemies. And, of course, subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. You get full video episodes of Eagles Enemies in every podcast on our network. YouTube.com/@Underground Sports Philadelphia. Smash that like button, ring the bell icon, comment down below your thoughts on this game. And, of course, be sure to check out our epic merch partners at PHI Apparel Company. Go to phiapparel.co and use code UNDERGROUND for 10% off your order at phiapparel.co. But this has been another episode of Eagles Enemies, Eagles Colts. It's going to be a doozy. Hopefully the Birds can bounce back, and we get some big-time plays from all the Batmen out there on the field on Sunday. Again, big thank you to Gio and David for hopping on the show this week, and let's go Birds. Till next week, when we're talking Eagles, Packers, Sunday night football. It's been another edition of Eagles Enemies, presented by Underground Sports Philadelphia. I'm your boy KB, and as always, go Birds!